When the key didn't fit in the lock of the house I grew up in, I thought I was losing my mind. But the truth was worse. Cheryl had already sold it. My own sister faked the paperwork, gutted Mom's kitchen, and smiled through brunch like nothing happened. But I had the receipts. I had the recordings. And I had one final move that would change everything. It all started at Ordinary Thursday. The lock on my parents' front door, the same one I'd used for over 20 years, had been changed. I stood there with a casserole dish wrapped in a checkered towel, my breath fogging in the late September chill. That's when I saw it. The new real estate sign. Small, tucked under the rose trellis by the front steps like it had been meant to stay hidden. Sold. I blinked, then looked again. The house wasn't just up for sale. It was already gone. For a second, I actually laughed. Not out of humor. Just the kind of laugh that slips out when something is too wrong to process right away. I backed up and double-checked the address, even though I didn't need to. I'd grown up on this porch, carved pumpkins on these steps, cried my first heartbreak into my mom's lap on this swing. And now the house, our house, wasn't ours anymore. Then my phone buzzed. Cheryl. Of course. Her name lit up the screen with one of those photos she picked herself, a glossy shot from her second wedding, her in full makeup, pearl earrings, and that practiced smile that could charm a snake. I answered. She was already mid-sentence. Oh, Linda, there you are. I was hoping you wouldn't come by today. The closing was just finalized. Bit of a surprise, I know, but things moved fast. It's all taken care of now. Just trying to keep things simple. Her tone was syrupy sweet, like she was consoling me over burnt cookies. I was coming to clean out Mom's sewing room, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. You said I had until the end of the month. Well, Cheryl cooed. The timeline shifted. Dean's contact got us an amazing offer. Cash buyer. No contingencies. You should be thanking me. This way we don't have to drag things out. I'm not on the deed anymore, I said. It wasn't a question. I already knew. My name was missing from that little white sign with the bold red sticker. There was a pause. Then she gave this low, fake sigh, like a woman burdened by too much responsibility. Mom had some changes done to her will before she passed, she said. She told me she thought it would be easier this way. Less paperwork, you know. Cleaner. I just stood there on the porch with the casserole growing cold in my hands, the towel beneath it damp with condensation. What changes? Linda, she said, soft and patronizing. It's all been handled. The house went to me and Dean in the final paperwork. You know how Mom got toward the end. Confused. She might have said a few things to you, but legally, we have to go by the documents. I'll send you a little something from the sale once we close the books. She hung up before I could answer. That's when the cold really settled in. Not just in the air, but deep in my bones. I set the casserole down on the porch rail. I didn't even care when it slipped and landed with a soft thump in the flower bed. I wasn't stupid. I was quiet. I was polite. But I wasn't stupid. And Cheryl had just made a very big mistake. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the pale glow of the street lamp casting a soft lattice through my blinds. I kept hearing Cheryl's voice in my head, syrupy and smug. Mom had some changes done before she passed, as if that erased everything. As if a line on a form could rewrite what we all knew to be true. Mom wanted me to have that house. She said it over and over, especially toward the end. When Cheryl would swan in with gluten-free muffins and real estate brochures, talking fast and loud like she was doing Mom a favor by streamlining her estate. Mom never liked conflict. She hated paperwork even more. But she told me, more than once with that look in her eyes, half stern, half weary, the house is yours, Linda. You've always understood what it means. And I did. I was the one who cleaned the gutters, who sat up with her during chemo nights, who paid the utilities from my library paycheck when the Social Security checks didn't stretch far enough. Cheryl would visit, smile, and leave with a to-go plate, and a list of things she thought needed updating. By sunrise, I'd already made a list. A real one. Not the kind Cheryl scribbled on brunch napkins with Dean while sipping mimosas. Mine was methodical, clean, chronological. June 4th. the day Mom told me she was naming me as the house inheritor. I had the voice memo still saved, recorded by habit when I started journaling aloud during her treatments. June 10th, Cheryl visited the lawyer. Without me. July 2nd. Mom sent me a handwritten letter, folded into a used card envelope, saying again, plainly, "Don't let Cheryl talk you out of it. I want you in this house." July 9th. A new calendar invite appeared on Mr. Ellis's online scheduling tool. Cheryl's name, one-on-one. I hadn't trusted it back then, so I'd started saving things. Not for revenge. For clarity. For protection. Now? I was very, very glad I had. By noon, I was parked outside Mr. Ellis's law office. Same brick building on Main Street, tucked between a dentist and a yoga studio. Inside smelled like carpet glue and lemon cleaner. He greeted me like he always had, cordially, but distracted, like a man always halfway to his next obligation. I asked for a copy of Mom's estate documents. "Just for my own records," I said. He hesitated at first, mumbling something about privacy and protocol. Then I reminded him, "I'm her daughter, and listed as executor in her original draft from last year. Surely there's a record of that." That got his attention. I watched his brow furrow. He went quiet, clicked around on his monitor for longer than felt normal. Eventually, he printed a set of documents and placed them in a manila envelope. "This was the version on file until July," he said. "There's another version, dated August. But Cheryl handled that filing." That was it. Just enough to confirm what I suspected. He didn't know he'd just handed me the first receipt. I drove home gripping that envelope like it was the last tether to my mother's voice. It even smelled like her, like the dusty vanilla of her study and the cedar drawers where she kept old Christmas cards. When I got home, I scanned every page. Backed it up twice. One on a flash drive, one on a cloud Cheryl would never think to check. Then I pulled out the voice memos. July 12th. "Mom, do you still want me to have the house?" Her voice, frail but clear, crackled through my phone. "Yes, honey. Cheryl doesn't care about this house the way you do. She never has. I want you to stay here. Promise me." I hit play again. And again. Not because I needed to remember, but because I knew Cheryl was about to pretend that never happened. She had money. She had Dean. She had Mr. Ellis on autopilot, and a real estate deal closed behind my back. But me? I had time. I had evidence. And I had a mother's voice, crystal clear. By the weekend, I'd turned my kitchen into a crime board. Not that I told anyone. I just canceled my Saturday shift at the library and pulled the blinds. The laminate table where I used to grade spelling quizzes and write grocery lists was now covered in color-coded folders, a scanner, and a cup of Sharpies. I was methodical. That's how I've always been. My high school nickname was Linda Ledger, because I used to alphabetize my CDs and balance my dad's checkbook for fun. Cheryl thought that made me boring. Now it made me dangerous. I started with the deed records. County office had a digital database that, thank God, hadn't been updated with any real user interface since 2003. It took me 15 minutes to find what I needed. Transfer of ownership. August 23rd. 1 week after Mom's funeral. Previous title holders, jointly in Mom's and Dad's names. Current owner, Cheryl Brennan. Full transfer, notarized. And the name that really made my spine tighten, Dean Brennan, agent on record. Dean, my brother-in-law, with his bleached teeth and fake charm, had been the one to file the final papers. I remembered him showing up late to Mom's wake, still wearing his Bluetooth headset. I thought it was just disrespect. Now I saw it for what it really was, a business opportunity. I screenshot everything, labeled the files, matched the timeline to Cheryl's surprise call on August 30th, 6 days later, after the papers were already filed. But the real crack came when I looked at the metadata on Mom's will. The one Cheryl claimed was updated before she passed. Except, guess what? The PDF file's creation date was August 22nd. Mom died on August 18th. Let that sit for a minute. The signature on the updated will was dated 2 days after her death. I checked it 3 times. Someone had backdated it. Now Cheryl's always been bold, But forging a dead woman's signature? That's a new level of delusional. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I wanted her to keep feeling smug. The longer she underestimated me, the better. But I did make one call. Gloria. She was Mom's neighbor for 30 years, the kind of woman who knew when every porch light came on and every trash can rolled out. Nosy, yes, but loyal. She answered on the second ring. "Oh, Linda, honey, I've been meaning to call. I was so surprised when I saw the moving van last week." "Gloria," I interrupted, my voice steady, "did you see Cheryl at Mom's house after the funeral? Like, that Sunday or Monday?" There was a pause. Then, a soft gasp. "Oh, yes, I did. She was there with Dean. They came real early, before 8 a.m. I thought it was odd. They brought in a shredder, Linda. One of those big rolling ones. I could hear it from my porch. Just shredding and shredding." I gripped the counter so tight my fingers ached. "Did you see what they were shredding?" "No, but, well, I did fish a few pieces out of my trash bin later. I know that's awful, but something felt wrong." She went quiet for a moment, then said carefully, "They were envelope bits. From the lawyer's office. I recognized the logo. I used to go to Mr. Ellis for our taxes." I closed my eyes. She kept talking. "I thought maybe I was being dramatic, so I just threw the scraps away. But, if you want, I can show you where I tossed them." That was all I needed. Sunday morning, I was digging through Gloria's neatly bagged recycling with gardening gloves on, piecing together scraps of thick envelope paper like a jigsaw. I found enough to reconstruct the printed return address, law offices of Kenneth Ellis, and part of a postmark dated July 15th. The letter had come, and Cheryl had shredded it. I took photos, bagged the pieces, labeled everything. I was quiet, I was boring, I was forgettable. But I had everything. Next time Cheryl tried to smile and coo her way through another poor Linda performance, I'd be ready to hit play. Because this wasn't about feelings anymore. It was about facts. And they were piling up fast. They invited me to brunch. I almost didn't go. The invite came in a chirpy text from Cheryl, complete with 2 emojis, a sun and a little stack of pancakes. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just stolen our mother's house and faked her way into the deed. "Let's put things behind us," she wrote. "Dean says we should try to come together as a family again. Sunday at the club? Our treat!" I stared at it for a full minute, feeling my jaw tighten. The nerve. But then I thought of Gloria's words, of the forged will, the shredded documents, and my mother's voice on that voicemail. I wasn't ready to strike yet. Not quite. But I wanted to look her in the eye and let her see nothing. Not guilt, not fear, not even anger. I wanted her to think I was still the same Linda she'd always underestimated. So I texted back, "See you Sunday." The country club was exactly what you'd expect, beige and smug, with the faint smell of hairspray and money. Dean had clearly had a few by the time I arrived. His face was flushed, and he slung his arm around me like we were old pals who hadn't just been through a legal ambush. "Linda," he boomed. "There she is, the long-lost sister. Missed you, kiddo." Cheryl smiled tight beside him, too polished, too perfect. Her perfume hit my nose like spoiled lilacs. "Glad you made it," she said. "We thought this would be good for closure." I nodded, said nothing, let them fill the silence with the sound of their own delusions. Over eggs Benedict and 2 strong mimosas, they chattered like everything was fine. Cheryl babbled about her new design clients, and Dean started in on a story about some beachfront rental he was renovating. I stirred my coffee and waited. It didn't take long. By the 3rd mimosa, Dean leaned in, grinning like he was sharing some grand inside joke. "You should have seen the offer we got for the house," he said, slurring just slightly. "Flipped it in under a week. Cheryl handled the paperwork like a champ. So efficient, right, babe?" Cheryl's hand froze on her fork. Just for a second. But I saw it. Dean, oblivious, kept going. "Didn't even need to list it publicly. My guy handled everything. Full cash. Renovation plans already in the works. Gutted that kitchen within days." I blinked, steady. Gutted? They were tearing it apart already? Cheryl gave him a sharp look, but he ignored her. "Once it sells, we're putting the profits into a second property down in Naples. You wouldn't believe the market right now." There it was. I reached slowly for my phone under the table, tapped the record button in the voice memo app. "Wow," I said, my voice calm. "That sounds fast. When did the listing go up?" Dean waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, that was right after the funeral. A week? Maybe less?" Cheryl already had the paperwork lined up. "Knew exactly what to say to the lawyer, right, babe?" Cheryl's eyes locked on mine. She knew. I knew. And now the memo app knew too. I set my napkin down carefully. Across the dining room, Gloria. Yes, that Gloria. Just so happened to be walking toward our table with her bridge group. Her eyes met mine. She gave the faintest nod. Timing, I thought. I was nearly ready. But not yet. I let the brunch end in polite smiles and hollow hugs, Cheryl's arm brushing mine like she hadn't gutted my legacy, and called it simplifying. Dean whispered something about inviting me to the beach house once the reno was done. I drove home in silence. But my voice memo wasn't silent. It captured every word, every drunken brag, every loose thread Cheryl had failed to pull tight. And with one more thread to unravel, the next move would be mine. My mother didn't trust the cloud. She didn't bank online, didn't store passwords on her computer, didn't even use voicemail unless I set it up for her. But what she did trust was me, and the little pink flip phone I'd gotten her, when the touchscreen one overwhelmed her. She called it her backup brain. It was still sitting in my drawer, wrapped in a Ziploc bag, the battery pulled but not discarded. I hadn't touched it since we cleaned out her hospital room. After that brunch, I pulled it out like a relic. Something in Dean's voice had snapped something loose in me. They'd gutted her kitchen, stripped the linoleum where she taught me how to knead dough, sold the stained glass window she saved up to install for her anniversary. It wasn't just a house, they were selling her. I recharged the phone, scrolled slowly through the ancient menu. The buttons clicked like little heartbeats in my fingers. There it was. One saved voicemail. July 16th, 2 days before she passed. I hit play. Her voice came through, soft but certain, like she was sitting right beside me. "Linda, I'm sorry to leave this on a message. I know you're probably at work, but I wanted to say it again in case I forget later. I know Cheryl's pushing for things to move fast, but don't let her sell the house. I told Mr. Ellis you should have it. She doesn't care about this place like you do. You keep it, honey. Don't let them talk over you." I sat back in my chair, the phone warm in my hand. My chest tightened, not with grief, but with something stronger, something that had been growing for weeks. Righteous fury. I saved the audio to my laptop, uploaded it to 2 encrypted drives. I even burned it onto a CD, because Cheryl wouldn't believe anything unless it came from something she could physically hold. Then I pulled out the handwritten letter. Mom's words, in that looping cursive with the slightly crooked left slant, addressed to me and tucked into an old birthday card. "Linda, you're the one who loves this house. You're the one who made it feel like home. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." I scanned it, labeled it, filed it. The folder on my desktop now read, "Case file, stolen house." It contained a voice memo from Dean, bragging about flipping the house, scanned will copies with metadata proving the final version was forged posthumously, Gloria's statement about the shredding, and photos of the envelope fragments. The original voicemail from Mom, backed up in 4 places. A copy of the real will, printed and time-stamped, from Mr. Ellis's office. And now, it was time to move from I drafted an email to Mr. Ellis. Subject, urgent, concerning discrepancies in my mother's estate documents. I attached everything. I didn't send it. Not yet. Because the truth is, part of me wanted Cheryl to look me in the eye just one more time. Wanted her to smile that smug little smile of hers and think she'd won. Just long enough for me to walk into the next town meeting, the one where Dean was scheduled to promote his new community revitalization real estate project. Because nothing hits quite like a bombshell dropped in public. And I was ready to pull the pin. Tuesday night, our sleepy little town packed itself into the old municipal building like it was election season. Folding chairs creaked under winter coats, and someone had brought sugar cookies in a plastic tub, probably hoping to sweeten public opinion. Dean Brennan was on the docket. Proposed grant allocation for East Maple Residential Renewal Project, the flyer read. Fancy way of saying he wanted tax money to fix up my mother's house, and a few others he'd snapped up for pennies. I wore Mom's brooch on my lapel, the one she'd pinned to her cardigan every Sunday. It was a small, blue cameo, barely noticeable, but it sat over my heart like armor. Cheryl was there too, of course. Red lipstick, white blouse, fake pearls. She looked like she was on her way to narrate a real estate seminar. When I walked in, she smiled like I was just another local voter she didn't recognize. Dean was already talking. He stood at the podium with his slideshow queued up behind him, mock-ups of revitalized kitchens and landscaped lawns. He was in his element, tossing buzzwords like value added and community legacy. It was all so polished. You'd almost forget what he was doing, flipping family homes into profit machines. When he got to my mother's house, slide 6, I counted. He paused with this faux emotional flourish. "This house, right here," he said, laying his palm dramatically over his heart, meant a lot to my wife's family. We wanted to make sure it didn't fall into disrepair after her mother passed. We're honoring the memory, really, restoring it. My jaw clenched so hard, I thought I'd crack a molar. I waited, breathed, then stood. "Excuse me," I said, my voice calm, but loud enough to carry. "Can I have a moment?" Dean looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Then he smiled, condescending, tight. "Linda, of course. Glad you're here. We were just talking about." I walked to the front, standing just beside the podium. I didn't touch him. Didn't look at Cheryl. I pulled my phone out of my coat pocket, opened the audio file, looked at the crowd, then tapped play. Mom's voice echoed out through the little Bluetooth speaker I'd tucked into my purse. "Don't let Cheryl sell the house. I told Mr. Ellis you should have it. She doesn't care about this place like you do. You keep it, honey." The room went dead silent. You could hear the heating vent rattle in the ceiling. The smell of coffee and sugar cookies hung heavy. I didn't say a word. Just let it play again. And again. On the third loop, Cheryl finally found her voice. That's clearly edited," she said, half laughing, looking around for support. "Linda, this is inappropriate." "Is it?" I turned to the crowd now, not even looking at her. "Because the will on file with the court wasn't signed until 4 days after my mother passed. Cheryl submitted it. Dean processed the sale. And this," I held up a copy of the original will, the one dated July, with Mom's clear signature and Mr. Ellis's letterhead, "is what was meant to happen." I turned to the councilwoman at the front row. "This house was promised to me, and I have evidence, not just of that promise, but of what happened after. Shredded documents, forged dates, a rapid-fire sale filed by a relative with a real estate license and no scruples." Dean looked like he wanted to melt through the floor. Councilwoman Hayes cleared her throat. "We'll be postponing tonight's grant consideration. Pending investigation?" I could feel Cheryl's stare burning holes into the back of my head, but I didn't look at her. Instead, I turned to leave. And just before I walked out the door, I heard Gloria, bless her, murmur to her neighbor loud enough for the room to catch it. She told that girl not to let them talk over her. Guess she listened. I walked into the cold night air, the door shutting behind me like a full stop. And for the first time since the key didn't fit in that lock, I felt the balance shift. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. 3 days after the town hall, Cheryl's real estate vision started to unravel like an old sweater pulled from the wrong end. First, it was the McGregors, an older couple who'd been considering listing their lakefront rental with her. Gloria told me they canceled their meeting the morning after the council postponed Dean's grant. Something about not wanting to be involved in messy family affairs, Gloria added, sipping her tea like it was gossip-flavored. Then came the Shermans. They'd already signed a listing contract with Cheryl, but called the brokerage directly to back out. "We just feel better working with someone. Transparent," the wife reportedly said. "I didn't need to ask how people found out. In a town like ours, everything gets around, especially a voicemail played in a public building." By Monday, Cheryl's name was no longer on the top sellers board outside her firm. A polite little change, just a rotation, they said. But I knew better. And so did she. She showed up at my library job that Wednesday. walked in like she was looking for a cookbook, but her eyes didn't flick once toward the shelves. She spotted me by the return bin and made a beeline. Her voice was low, tight. "You had no right playing that message in front of everyone." I straightened the stack of interlibrary holds without looking at her. "I had every right." She leaned closer. Her perfume was the same. It always smelled expensive and slightly sour to me, like someone trying too hard to cover something rotten. "You're gonna ruin everything over a voicemail and a few dusty envelopes?" she hissed. "Dean and I made that house worth something. You were going to let it sit and rot." I turned and looked her dead in the eye. "Mom didn't want it flipped, Cheryl. She wanted it lived in." "There's a difference." Her face twisted. Something behind her eyes flickered. Not regret. Something closer to fear. I kept going, voice calm. "You forged a signature. You shredded a legal document. You filed a transfer of ownership after Mom died, and I've got the dates to prove it. Your flipping scheme is a fraud, and I've already handed over everything to Mr. Ellis." She didn't deny it. She just stared at me like she couldn't quite believe I'd spoken back. That was always Cheryl's fatal flaw. She thought silence meant weakness. She never understood it could also mean watching. And I'd watched for months. "I'm not looking to ruin your life," I said finally. "I just want what's mine. What Mom wanted for me. That's it." She opened her mouth, closed it, then walked away. Didn't check out a thing. Didn't say goodbye. Just walked out of the library with her head down. I watched through the front windows as she crossed the sidewalk to her car, a sleek white SUV with realtor magnets on the side, half peeled from the rain. She slammed the door harder than she needed to. That was the last time she tried to confront me in public. By the end of the week, her photo vanished from the brokerage's website. "On leave," someone said. "Personal reasons." Dean was still trying to pitch his grant idea, minus the house, but the town council was colder than February pavement. And me? I was just getting started. It was raining the morning I got the call from Mr. Ellis. That soft, misty kind of rain that Ohio specializes in. Quiet, gray, not enough to need an umbrella, but enough to soak your socks if you weren't careful. I was folding the library's new arrival flyers when the phone buzzed. His number lit up the screen, and my heart did this strange little stutter. I answered on the second ring. "Linda," he said, sounding less like the distracted small-town attorney I remembered, and more like a man who'd just realized he'd walked into a mess wearing suede shoes. "I need to see you today." His office still smelled the same, wood polish and aging paper. He didn't even have to tell me to sit. I walked straight in and closed the door behind me. "I owe you an apology," he began. I didn't answer, just waited. He held up a file. Thick, crisp. It had the seal I recognized from Mom's estate binder, the one she used for anything serious. "This," he said, tapping the folder, "is the real will, the one she signed in my presence on July 15th. I found it in the misfiled documents drawer. Cheryl must have brought in another version later, said it was a replacement. I never questioned it." I stared at him. "You didn't think to compare signatures?" He looked ashamed. And honestly, he should have. "She was a client for 20 years, he said, softer now. I trusted her. And I was grieving too. I believed him. But I didn't forgive him. Not yet. He slid the folder across the desk. "This version names you as sole inheritor of the house," he said. "No mention of Cheryl. No mention of Dean. It's notarized, witnessed, dated." "And the forged one?" I asked. He nodded toward a separate folder. "Already filed for investigation. I've submitted everything to the probate court this morning." I sat very still. Let it sink in. "It may take a few weeks," he added. "But with the voicemail, the metadata, the shredded envelope fragments you found, and now this, Cheryl doesn't stand a chance." I picked up the original will, ran my thumb over Mom's signature, that familiar loop in the L, the way she always crossed her T with a soft little hook. It was real. This was real. I looked up at Mr. Ellis. "She tried to erase me," I said quietly, but Mom made sure I'd be heard. He didn't say anything, just gave a small, solemn nod, the kind you give when someone's truth finally stops being a theory and becomes something the law can't ignore. I left the office with that folder pressed against my chest like a shield. Outside, the rain had stopped. A thin shaft of sunlight was breaking through the clouds. Nothing dramatic, just enough to catch on the wet pavement, turning it from gray to silver. It felt like a sign. Cheryl hadn't just lost a house. She'd lost the illusion of control. And the court? The court was about to make it official. The courthouse smelled like wet carpet and bad coffee, and the fluorescent lights made everything look 2 shades harsher. I sat on the worn wooden bench outside courtroom B, with the original will in my lap, that manila folder of truth hugging my thighs like it could keep me steady. Cheryl arrived 10 minutes late. She swept in with Dean at her side, both of them dressed like they were heading to a real estate gala instead of a probate dispute. She wore cream slacks and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Her smile? Thin, fragile, coated in gloss but cracking at the corners. Dean looked tired, more bloated than usual, and beneath that tan, he was sweating. Their lawyer was a young guy. Nervous. He kept adjusting his tie like it was strangling him. Mr. Ellis, by contrast, had his reading glasses on, tabs sticking out of his brief, and the calm confidence of a man who knew he was about to right a very public wrong. When the judge entered, everyone stood. My legs felt numb, but I rose anyway. The hearing was short, focused, no time for theatrics. Mr. Ellis laid out the timeline. The original will, signed and witnessed in July. Cheryl's version, suspiciously dated after Mom's passing. The voice memo from Mom. The metadata from the PDF. The shredded envelope found by the neighbor. Every piece lined up, crisp and clean, like dominoes waiting for the last flick. Then he played the voicemail. Mom's voice filled the courtroom. "Don't let Cheryl sell the house. I told Mr. Ellis you should have it." The judge paused the playback himself. "That's enough," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "We don't need further evidence of intent." Cheryl's attorneys stood up, started saying something about confusion, emotional volatility, grieving family members. But the judge waved it off. The will dated July 15th will be upheld as the valid document of record. Effective immediately, any transactions regarding the property at 1149 East Maple are suspended. This court will issue a freeze order to prevent transfer, sale, or renovation until full review is completed. Dean slumped in his seat. Cheryl just stared at the judge like she couldn't quite believe the world had stopped spinning for her. Then came the kicker. Furthermore, the judge added, given the evidence of potential fraud, the matter will be referred for additional legal review. If criminal forgery is confirmed, charges may be pursued. Cheryl's jaw visibly tightened. Dean shifted like he wanted to sink through the floor. Their lawyer's tie was soaked with sweat. And me? I just sat there, still as stone, letting every word etch itself into my memory. Afterward, in the hallway, Cheryl brushed past me. Didn't look at me, didn't say a word. But her arm brushed mine, and I could feel the tension in her whole body like it was trying to hold back a scream. Dean trailed behind her, muttering something about liability insurance. The courtroom door clicked shut behind. I exhaled. That house? It was mine again. And their precious Flip? Dead in the water.